What is a key feature of sustainable economic growth? You're right. Long-term environmental conservation is the correct answer. What does an increase in real GDP over time indicate? Correct response. Economic growth is the most accurate answer. What is the main reason for Mumbai's economic growth? Smart move. Its deep water harbour is an accurate answer. All of the following stimulate economic growth except. Nicely done. A population highly dependent on welfare is a solid answer. How is the rate of economic growth commonly measured? Strong choice. By the growth in real gross domestic product is the right answer. The rate of growth of an economy mainly depends upon. Right choice. The rate of technological improvements is the best answer. What was the main effect of buying stocks on margin? Excellent. Created quick wealth is a brilliant choice. What is the Economic Freedom Index of Israel? Clear logic. Your choice moderately open to entrepreneurship is sound and 100% true. Economists measure economic growth primarily using. Nice selection. Gross domestic product is the correct and valid answer. What was Warren Harding's economic policy known as? Nice work. You chose return to normalcy and it is correct. Most countries measure economic growth each quarter. Excellent choice. Quarter is the right answer. A and decrease in quantity and quality of education. Sharp thinking. Decrease economic growth is the right choice. Tools used in the production of goods and services. Correct. Capital goods is the right answer. What did reduced taxes contribute to in the 1920s? Bravo. Economic growth and prosperity is the answer. What is the World Bank's view on inclusive growth? On track. It promotes equitable distribution of benefits is the correct answer. Economic growth can be seen by an outward shift of. Exactly. The production possibility curve makes sense, and it is right choice. The index to measure economic well-being is dash. Valid point. All answers are correct is true. Potential economic growth can be represented by. Great job. Rightward shift of Laras is the accurate answer. What is the focus of export-led growth strategy? Smart pick. Increasing exports is the correct choice. Name one factor that can hinder economic growth. You got it? Your choice, political instability, is right. What is the best way to measure economic growth? Good thinking. Gross domestic product is the right answer. What are the consequences of economic recession? Solid response. Negative economic growth rate for at least 2 quarters is a valid choice. Economic growth can be shown diagrammatically as. Well picked. All of the options is the correct answer. Which of the following is not correctly matched? Great thinking. Development with unlimited supplies of labor, A0. Hirschman is the right choice. What is a key policy tool for inclusive growth? Perfect. Fiscal policy is the correct choice. How can a country improve its economic growth? Right again. All of the above is a valid answer. Which policy might not promote economic growth? Well done. Increasing taxes on all goods and services is the right choice. Economic development is usually accompanied by. Good job. Your answer inflation works well here. What might cause a decline in economic output? Well reasoned. An increase in unemployment is the correct choice. What is the goal of inclusive growth policies? You chose to ensure economic advancements benefit everyone. And it is correct. Arrange between the different economic systems. On track. Economic continuum is the correct answer. The theory of Big Push is based on the idea of. Excellent. External economies of scale is a brilliant choice. What is the economic growth rate at the moment? Grade A is the answer. What is most likely to cause economic growth? Good thinking. Increased education and training for workers is the right answer. What is a method to increase economic growth? Great thinking. Increase labor productivity is the right choice. Which of these factors affect economic growth?
You got it. Your choice, all of them, is right.
How is economic growth measured in a country? Nice selection. Gross domestic product growth is the correct and valid answer. Inclusive economic growth primarily aims to. Exactly. Improve the living standards of the entire population makes sense, and it is right choice. What is important to keep a country growing? Valid point. Economic and technological growth is true. What is a concern related to aid wariness? You're right. It reduces flows of aid is the correct answer. What is the core periphery model a part of? Correct response. World system theory is the most accurate answer. What is the main goal of Indonesia by 2045?
Smart pick. Realizing golden Indonesia is the correct choice.
Economic growth can be best described as.
Nice work. You chose an increase in real GDP per capita over time, and it is correct.
One advantage of rapid economic growth is. Well reasoned. Increased tax revenues for government spending is the correct choice. The three main determinants of growth are. Strong choice. Labor, capital and technological progress is the right answer. What are two causes of economic barriers? Perfect. Government regulations and trade restrictions is the correct choice. What does real GDP growth rate take out? You chose inflation, and it is correct. Why decent work is important for people? Great job. All answers are correct is the accurate answer. Sustainable economic growth depends upon. Excellent choice. Both saving and investment is the right answer. What does sustainable development means? Right choice. Sustainable growth that doesn't harm the environment is the best answer. An economic recession is defined as dash. Good job. Your answer to 2 consecutive quarters of economic contraction works well here. What is the macro objective for growth? Sharp thinking. Strong and sustained economic growth is the right choice. A deflationary gap is characterized by. Well picked. Aggregate demand being lower than potential output is the correct answer. What is one benefit of economic growth?
Solid response. Increase in availability of goods and services is a valid choice.
What factors can cause economic growth? Smart move. Improved technology is an accurate answer. What is the potential economic growth? Clear logic. Your choice and increase in an economy's productive capacity is sound and 100% true. What is the target for economic growth? Right again, as close to 2.5% as possible is a valid answer. What is the trade cycle also known as?
Nicely done. The business cycle is a solid answer.
What mostly drives economic growth? Well done. Incentives is the right choice. How can economic growth be measured? Correct. GDP, NINP, real GDP growth rate is the right answer.
What kind of policies affect growth?
Exactly. Government policies that invest in infrastructure and technology makes sense and it is right choice. How do you work out rate of growth?
Excellent choice. Change in GDP, original GDP x 100 is the right answer.
Sustainable economic growth is dash. Nicely done. A large, deep growth and not huge price change is a solid answer. What are negative effects of growth? Smart pick. Resource depletion. Increased inflation is the correct choice. Takeoff stage in an economy means?
Sharp thinking. Steady growth begins is the right choice.
Economic growth can be measured by. Right choice. GDP is the best answer. What is meant by economic growth?
Correct response. An increase in real GDP is the most accurate answer.
Why is economic growth important? Smart move. To increase per capita income is an accurate answer. The concept of economic growth is. Great thinking. Narrower than the concept of economic development is the right choice. Economic growth is defined as. Good thinking. Actual increase in real GDP over time is the right answer. Economic growth measures the.
Clear logic. Your choice increase in output is sound and 100% true.
Economic growth refers to.
Great job. Increases in the production capacity of a country is the accurate answer. Choose the correct spelling.
Well picked. Economic is the correct answer. What is the purpose of GDP? Excellent. To determine the economic health of a country is a brilliant choice. A recession is defined as. Correct. 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP growth is the right answer. Economic growth involves. Right again. All of the above is a valid answer. Which one was the topic? Bravo. Decent work and economic growth is the answer. What is economic growth? You chose an increase of wealth produced over time. And it is correct. What is a recession? Strong choice. A phase where there is negative economic growth is the right answer.
The economic growth. Perfect. Economic growth is the correct choice. How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format.
Well done. Contact Narayan Changda is the right choice.